Welcome to Hardheaded Podcast. It's time to join the conversation.
Welcome to the show. This show is sponsored by Trussell Media. Need some videos made, give them a call. Also, Admiral's Pennant. If you need some beard oil, go to admiralspennant.com.
I put some of that on the other day. I felt real dapper.
Did you? Because that bottle's probably like 6 years old, sir.
It's not. It's like
It's
two.
beyond its shelf life.
It's like two.
Need
And
to
it did
reorder.
Great. It did great. I don't need to reorder until I've exhausted my current supply. Have you not seen the economy?
I see he's following my advice. Well done, sir. Screwed myself over in the process.
Yep.
I don't even
There
know what
you
you're
go.
talking about.
Anyway, this is Hardheaded, as you heard before. I'm sitting here with Chet, Sears, and Mr. Matt Amos.
Hi.
I am Troy Trussell, your host today.
I'm Matt.
Today we're going to talk about what's on Matt's mind, but first, or actually, but next, I'm going to tell you the other two things we're going to talk about.
That's a good job, man.
Yeah.
We've only been doing this for like 100 and some odd episodes.
I know. I get it wrong every time.
I believe this is 128.
We're going to
Alright.
talk about top 3 cuts of steak, and we're going to hear a good word from Chet. But first, Matt,
Now,
what is it? What's on your mind
first.
now?
what is on my mind now is I have diligently been trying to work on a 1964 Lincoln Continental. And it's a lot of fun. I mean, I've spent a lot less time on Facebook. I've spent a lot less time doing other things like video games and what else do I do? I don't know.
Farming? Have you planted any?
I have not farmed anything.
You get your food plots put in?
My food plot's established. I don't have to touch it.
You don't have to touch it.
Nope.
Yeah.
We're good now.
Clover?
I might do something in the fall, like the turnips or something like that in the fall. Plant some greens or something like that.
I read a paper from a biologist at K-State that said don't do turnips in Kansas.
Well, they work, so
Temporarily.
that's all I need.
Okay.
About 5 days. That's all I needed to work.
All right.
But it's a learning process for me because this isn't something that my dad taught me growing up. You know, I mean, we weren't very automotive
Inclined.
and my biological father was a welder, but I never spent any time around him, which that skill would come in extremely handy right now. But from other members of my family said he wasn't really a teacher, so you're probably better off not having welded with him. But it's interesting to me how relaxing that can actually be. Like I've had issues like with my cars, like in college, and like alternator goes out or something goes wrong and you freak out immediately because you're like, I don't know how much this is going to cost. And if
I need it to drive. So you're working on a car that you don't need to drive.
Yeah, that's just purely for whenever I get it done is when I get it done. I've got kind of a deadline in mind. I'd like it to be done by at least drivable. It doesn't have to be perfect, but drivable for my oldest senior
And
prom.
stoppable.
Stopping is my number one thing, which I'm going to get to.
Yeah.
But have it done, I kind of want it done around this time next year, at least drivable to have my oldest go to prom in it.
Yeah.
And, but come to find out, some of these older cars that this one has a single master cylinder instead of a dual master cylinder for the brakes.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the number one things that all of the guys that drive these cars are like, that's the very first thing you want to replace because they're known to fail. And there's all kinds of pictures that these guys post in this group of the front of that car hits a fence or hits a thing in a road or something like that. And it gets dented up, which not much happens to those cars because they're just solid. But, they post these and they're like, yep, pushed on the brakes and it went soft and then just zero brakes. And then another guy was like, he goes, some girl was walking in between traffic and all of a sudden
Nothing.
I didn't have brakes. And I was literally almost going to pin this girl between my car, which that Lincoln for what it is weighs 6,000 pounds. I mean, that's a heavy car.
Not quite as heavy as the electric vehicles coming out these days, but go ahead.
No, what are those? What's a Tesla weigh?
I don't know.
I imagine those batteries are pretty heavy.
There are growing concerns that the parking infrastructure that has been set up in large cities will not be able to facilitate electric vehicles.
That's an interesting.
Wow.
So, like, hey, can you park a Tesla on one now? Yes. If 100% of the people are driving electric cars, like, they're going to have to go down, they're going to have to block off spots, because if you filled one up, the whole thing would collapse.
Huh.
Anyway, sorry. Yeah, big issue.
Little
big
things
issue.
you don't think of that have an impact. That's weird. That's crazy. But anyway, so, and this guy almost pinned this girl in between his car, but he had the wherewithal to smash his emergency e-brake, and then that stopped the car. So I've been going through and trying to get all the parts together to switch that over, but even almost got kicked out of my, so I keep the car in a storage unit, and that's where I've been doing all of my work on it. And about got kicked out of my storage unit, Troy, because I called the owner, and I did the right thing. Because I told my mom what I was going to do. I was like, hey, I'm just going to put a car lift. I'm going to buy a car lift, and I'm going to pour a couple of little pads in there to put the car lift on, and then I'll just put the car in there and I'll work on it. She's like, well, don't you think maybe you should ask the owner before you go doing something like that? I go, why? It's not going to change anything. I go, I'm just putting a car lift in there. And I said, I'm putting a couple of pads in there just to make it level, but I'm doing him a favor because it's just 2 extra little pads that are helping out. And she's like, well, you know how I am. If it were me, I know how you are and how you do things. And I was like, yeah, ask forgiveness later. I mean, a little easier that way. I mean,
I'll take the car lift out as soon as I finish my car.
Yeah. I mean, or, I get the car work done, then he finds out and it's like, okay, I'm done anyway. I'll move it all out. Fine.
Yeah.
But I did it the right way. And I called this guy and I was like, hey, question for you. Could I get you to pour a couple of pads in there and I'll pay for it? Or do you want me to? But I'd like to put a car lift in there. And I didn't hear anything for about a day, which is pretty rare because he normally gets back to me pretty quick. And the next day I texted him again. I was like, hey, any word on this? And he goes, I can't allow you to do that. And I was like, well, I mean, I go, if you're worried about, I'm not bolting it to the floor. I said, these things come on casters, so they're actually movable. I said, but I won't have the casters on when we're in there. But I mean, it's portable. It's not a permanent structure. He's like, no, that thing's for storage only. It's not an auto shop. It's not for working on cars, just for storage. And I mean,
okay.
So that's led to a whole new line. Like I sent out to a buddy of mine that's a contractor, and I was like, give me a quote for a 36 by 30 2-car garage, and because I had him quote my big shop, and today that ain't happening.
Yeah,
in today's market right now, anyway. I got to wait till the economy collapses, but I need something now.
Fingers crossed.
And I've saved. I'm ready to go. But so hopefully I can get this 36 by 30 in a reasonable price so that I'll have a place to put the lift and work on the car at home and even be a little bit more relaxing. But because it's kind of funny because there's a lot of work, and I mean, I think you guys saw my arms. Was it the last time?
Yeah.
We recorded.
I
was
busting your knuckles in your arm,
scraped up and beat up, and I mean, I got under there, and I don't know how many times I crashed, crunched my knuckles or hit my elbow, and cursed at the car and all this kind of stuff, but it's still a respite. For some reason, I still find that relaxing, and I don't know why. Yeah,
because you don't have to drive it.
Well, yeah, but it's fun to tinker on and like learn things that I didn't, like how, because I have a basic knowledge of, automotives and cars and stuff like that. But it was, these cars are crazy. The amount of the amount of technology that was available in 1964. That
they were sending people to the moon back then.
Right, but we just didn't think about, we think it's so long ago, but I mean, I got power seats and power windows and power, vacuum system locks. But I mean, crazy.
Yeah.
That the amount of adjustability in the seat is the same as my F-350 is right now.
Yeah. And it cost a fraction of what that F-350 seat cost.
100% until I go get it refinished, and then it's going to be about the same. But
the Tesla vehicles range from like 3,200 pounds to 5,400.
So what? So that would be about the size of what?
Well, I don't know. What do you? I didn't know I was supposed to be.
Well, I was going to
else.
say, just how much more is that than the average car?
Oh,
Because like I said, that 64, it's 18 feet long. It weighs 6,000 pounds. But I think, my truck, F-350, which fits in some parking garages, not all. But that's, it's right around 6,000 pounds, I think.
a Honda Accord. What are you doing?
Small autos usually weigh around 2,500 pounds, and large automobiles around 4,200. SUVs or trucks can range from 3,500 pounds to over 6,000.
Yeah. So the
And what did you say a Tesla was? 54?
5,400. The bigger one. Yeah. Plaid or something like that.
Well, according to JD Power, that's no more than SUVs on the road today.
but those aren't SUVs; those are cars.
That's a car. So an electric SUV, I bet that Ford Lightning weighs a ton.
But so in my
More than a ton.
my F-350s, it's somewhere between 5,800 and 7,600 pounds.
So 5,400 is not that far off. So
that'd be like a parking lot full of F-350s.
yeah.
That'd be a lot of weight.
But if you were to, you couldn't fill up a parking garage with F-350s because there's not enough space. But you could fill it up with Teslas.
Ford Lightning is 6,000 to 6,900 pounds.
Yeah, and that's dry weight. Not that you're adding gas, but you're gonna have stuff in it. People.
Yep.
Yeah, that's crazy.
But anyway, so I guess overall, kind of what's been on my mind is I would have things I wish I would have learned, which may have been like a top 3 deal, which maybe we can do at some point.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think we've done that already.
Top 3 things you wish you learned.
Wish you would have learned.
Yeah.
Not that you can't learn them.
Yeah.
But that I would have been really useful to know already. How to weld.
Yeah.
I mean, and what's funny is every one of my buddies that's welders, what do they tell you? You ever asked anybody, hey, can you teach me how to weld, or can you show me? You ever asked anybody that?
No.
You know what they say? Just get one and play around.
No. Yeah.
Like, bro, I don't even know how to turn it on to play around. Like, I don't know. I know that there's 2 bottles. I don't know what's in them. I know there's some electricity involved.
Well, you got MIG and TIG. There's all kinds of different welders.
Right. And it's like, I don't know.
You're thinking of like an acetylene torch. You're separating with that, not welding.
See, you know more than I do already.
Well,
So anyway,
I've worked in shops.
I'm really excited because my daughter, my youngest, is a freshman next year, and she's taking shop, and welding is one of the classes.
Nice.
So if any of the floor pans need to be replaced,
Guess what she gets to do?
she gets to weld the floor pans in place, and then she gets to teach me how to weld, which I think would be kind of cool.
Let me tell you what my dad did with a hole that we had in our floorboard. I think it was the Ford Courier that we had. He took a mason lid
Flintstone car.
jar. You know how it's got the 2-piece lid? You know what I'm talking about on a mason jar?
Yeah.
So that little metal disc and like some JB weld or something. It's just like,
Glued it.
yeah. Yeah. Both sides.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and
Like kept the water from the road blowing up in the truck while you're driving down there.
perfect.
Yeah.
That's all you need.
Yeah.
Yeah, but so it's kind of funny because I was telling this to my my second oldest brother, and he's like, yeah, he goes, and he calls him Daddy. He goes, Daddy didn't teach me any of that stuff either. He goes, I don't know anything about that. He goes, I know how, and he's worked on his own cars, and because he's a pastor and not a lot of money, and so he's done a lot of his own mechanicking over the years, and he's like, but the one thing I do remember is one time back in, he goes, I think it was 83, the power went out, and he goes, Daddy used his welder as a generator to keep his coffee warm. He goes, but that's about the only.
Yeah.
I was like, well, he definitely was a boiler maker, so he knew welding in and out. But
Nice.
just some of those things I wished I would have learned, a little bit more about welding and metal work and stuff, because I think it's just so interesting and I'm attracted to it. So it's ingrained in me genetically, I think, to want to do something like that. And I think it's something I could be good at if I could learn. But like I said, everybody's like, just go play around. Like, no, I don't. That's not how my brain works. I don't just play around with.
Yeah, it's fascinating, especially with the heat and electricity and all that kind of stuff. But I used to hang around in the with the maintenance guys in the maintenance shop in my first job in a factory, and heck, I had them make gun parts for me, like a bolt on an old Marlin that they didn't have that part. The Enumeric or whoever it was, they're like, we don't have this. So I showed him a picture of it, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I think I could turn that," And he got some scrap metal and it goes back there. Just some really cool stuff like that.
Well, I mean, it's just like when, Big Al, when he built my motorcycle, I mean, I was there for a majority of that process, and just to watch him create, I mean, it's part artistry when you're doing that stuff, but to see him just like take a piece of cardboard, go, oh man, this would be a really cool shape here. You got to have the vision, unless it's already built like this car, and then you already know what you're doing. But, and then take a piece of cardboard and then cut that out of metal and then weld that piece to this piece and then put it on there and then grind it all down so it's smooth and rounded. And you're like, what
just happened?
I know what that piece looked like when you started. How did you get it to look like that? It's just not welders and metal workers just impress me. I'm extremely impressed by that trade.
Very good. All right. We're going to take a break, come back with our top 3 cuts of meat. Are you driving traffic to your website? Do you have an engaging homepage? Better yet, does your homepage have a video? We recently created a video for a client about his business and the services they provide. Since he placed the video on the homepage of their website, he has had a number of clients specifically say they decided to use his services because of that video. At Trussell Media, we help businesses create engaging videos to host on their websites, email to clients, and use in their social media marketing. Contact us if you're interested in creating a video for your homepage today. TrussellMedia.com. Fill out the form at TrussellMedia.com/contact. Let us help you tell your story through video.
And we're back.
All right, we're back. Before we get into our top 3
Cuts of steak.
Just want to apologize to all of our listeners out there for past few episodes. Matt's poop mouth.
What? I have not had anything this episode.
Not yet. It ain't over yet.
I said the past few episodes.
Yeah.
Had a little potty mouth.
I have.
One of our listeners, I was talking with one of our
Ron
listeners,
Burgundy over there.
What?
And,
you just never.
and they said,
He'll read exactly what
they said, you know what I love about you guys is I could listen to this in my car with my kids. And that day, the episode dropped with Matt's potty mouth. That day.
Immediately let that
that we lost a listener.
I don't even know what I said.
Yeah. Huh?
I don't even know what I said.
Yeah. Well, we can't say it again.
No.
We'll tell you later.
Well, like I told you, I'm a sinner, Chet. I'm not perfect.
It's true.
So it's hard to break some habits.
Yeah.
All right. Chet, what do you got?
The top sirloin is my number 3 cut of steak. That's all I have. Back when in my younger days, that's all I could even afford.
That's all you can afford.
So it still has an affinity in my heart. The next one, the hanger steak. Are you aware of this?
I know about the hanger. I don't know where.
You know about the skirt steak?
I know all about a skirt steak because that's what you use for carne asada.
So the skirt is part of kind of the edge of what the hanger is. It's a little bit more in the middle of the diaphragm. I'm a fan of the skirt and the hanger.
Skirt's delicious if it's cooked right.
Big fan. Number 2.
And if it's cooked right, it's not too tough because you can have some skirt steaks that are really tough.
Here's a caveat with all cuts of steak. They're only good if they're cooked right.
Very true.
All right. Let's just get that out there.
All right. That's out of the way.
Yeah. Number 1, ribeye. There's no way around it. You can't. I mean, if you guys have something different, I'm going to disagree with you, but
I got something different.
I got something different because
y'all don't know. You don't know.
There's no way around all that fat in a ribeye. I mean, there's so much that. Ugh,
I eat a lot of it.
I don't.
Dude,
You don't like
I
the fat?
I will end up with a pile of fat. I just cannot stand the consistency.
What's wrong with you?
The flavor
what's wrong with you?
is phenomenal, but
He's been drinking Bud Light.
but when that hits
drinking
my mouth, Yingling. No, I don't drink beer, but if I did, it would be Yingling. But no, all that fat, golly, no.
It's healthy.
He said you got to
good for
eat
you.
everything on the plate.
If you,
Even that little piece of gristle. Nope.
well, you guys are wrong.
That was the old
I don't know what your top 3
96er.
is, but you're wrong.
96er.
That's the best cut of steak ever.
Well,
just telling
you
you.
have a right to your own opinion.
No, there's
All right, well, I'll go.
facts. Spit some facts.
My number 3, the sirloin strip, which is, I believe, the same as the top sirloin.
I think so.
Number 2, the ribeye.
Well, it's at least it's in your top 3. I don't think it's in Matt's.
I love the ribeye, man. It's good.
It's fantastic.
Not a fan.
Number 1, filet mignon. So good. Melts in your mouth. It's delicious.
You don't even need a knife.
Can't
You don't
beat
need
it.
a knife with a ribeye.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah. To pull it apart to get the fat off. Yeah, you do.
Matt, what do you got?
Number 3, sirloin.
look at us.
Trip.
Same reason, because I grew up eating it whenever we'd go to a steakhouse. We couldn't afford the really good stuff, so I would always order the sirloin
Yeah.
because I could get a lot more for a lot less.
Mhm.
And I had a big appetite when I was
Oh, yeah.
younger.
We
Serves you right.
go ahead. There was a deal when I was in college. We go to Ryan's. Was there a Ryan's buffet? You guys know what I'm talking about?
We had a Ryan Steakhouse.
Yeah. But it's a buffet,
Yeah.
right? So we were standing in line one day because I had a goal. I don't know why. Like just one. I'm just gonna pay for one meal a day. Like that was. And so where could you get enough food where you're like, I'm satisfied. I wasn't paying like a whole lot of money, and I'm not gonna have to eat again today. So you've heard me talk about Barbecue City. There was like a Chinese buffet in Ryan's. We're standing in line one day, and my buddy Lance is looking up there at that menu. And I'm like, why are you looking at the menu? He's like, I think I'm figuring something out. Like, we're just getting the buffet, dude. And he, started adding things up. And he asked the lady, he said, hey, it looks like if I ordered a petite sirloin and a small buffet, which if you ordered an entree, a steak, you can order a side, which is the buffet. He's like, it looks like that comes out cheaper than just the buffet. She's like, yeah, it's like 63 cents cheaper. So, dude, steak and the buffet. And, you had to get a new plate every time you went back. So they gave you a small plate for the buffet, which is the first plate that you had. But then you just went and got a bigger plate after you're doing that. So we were getting steak and the buffet and eating cheaper than just the buffet. It was awesome.
63 cents cheaper.
And I'm petite sirloin. Anyway. Okay.
Number 2, A5 Wagyu New York strip. That may be.
You know what? New York strip makes my top 3 overrated steak cuts.
It used to make mine.
Until it was Wagyu.
Yes.
Yeah.
That may, and that was one of those steaks that we went and bought at a butcher shop, and then we brought back to the house when I was in Kentucky, and Josh prepared it because he does a phenomenal job on steaks. That was the richest steak that I've ever had.
Why are they so good?
Because it's marbled well, not just
That's the fat. I could hear you grinning. It's because
Not-
it's got fat.
but not globs of fat, not just globs.
Not like a ribeye, apparently.
No, definitely
You want to
not like a
genetically
ribeye.
engineer the cow to have ribeye fat in all of its muscle fibers. That's all they did.
I said the flavor of that was awesome, but it's just the consistency.
Yeah.
This solves it.
Yeah.
And so rich that I couldn't, I mean, and I felt bad. I was like, I cannot eat this whole thing because it's that rich. And so I had it next morning with eggs.
Yeah.
But
Like we did those moose steaks that time.
yeah, same
Yeah.
thing. And then number 1, bacon wrap filet.
What? Why do you have to have bacon on a filet?
I just like the flavor of bacon.
Because they're
added to it.
dry.
No,
that's why.
No,
they don't have enough fat.
No, not necessarily. They don't have.
I don't like the bacon wrap. I like a regular filet mignon.
I like the bacon in there just because it adds that like that bacon flavor to it. I don't know.
Yeah, because
like
you need it because it's not that good of a cut of meat.
No, it doesn't need it.
It's just like A1. I love A1.
It's delicious.
It just adds to it.
Dude,
Thicker
I saw
better.
somebody marinate their smoking wood chips in A1 the other day. And I was like, I bet that's good.
I have to try
like
that.
an A1 smoke.
I have to try that.
Yeah, I bet that. Man, I saw that. I was like, oh, that's pretty good. Here's two reasons.
Now, do you know the reason why they created A1?
No.
Back in the day, it was to cover the taste of rancid meat.
Oh, okay. So, but you still ate it. Yeah.
Yeah, so they could still, it wasn't like it to the point it was going to kill you, but it was to cover the smell because they didn't have a place to refrigerate their food. So,
well, my thing with Wagyu and Mignon, you shouldn't have names that people can't pronounce on your marketable meat. So that's another strike against both of your suggestions.
Filet mignon.
Yeah.
mignon.
You said mignon. Some people would say mignon. And Wagyu or Wagyu or Wagyu. I'm not even going to order it. I don't want to hear it.
Well, see,
Get that stuff out of there.
The other day, I bribed my girls to get ready for something. Like it was like a Saturday. I'm like, yeah. And if you get up early, they had to do something. I'll go and get you a drink, at the coffee shop or whatever while you're getting ready. They're like, and they did it, and I'm like, oh crap! Now I got to go get them a drink. So I went to a place and I ordered a caramel, whatever.
caramel.
Yeah, and they corrected me in the drive. Do you mean caramel?
Whoa!
I'm like, no, I don't.
I would have left.
It's caramel.
And I would stare that person in the face and say, I will never buy from you again.
Like I did with Nola's Pizza.
That's right.
That you don't. It's wrong. Number one. Number two. Just let it be. You don't need to correct me on that.
It's caramel.
These people around here, the Midwest nice, whatever.
They're not perfect, Chet.
Yeah.
Now, is it pecan or pecan?
Pecan.
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 No, whatever. Yeah, you just picked whatever we weren't going to say. You're trying to stir the pot.
All right. Well, that was good. Any honorable mentions? Prime rib anywhere? No?
No.
I did a prime rib for Christmas, and it was pretty good, but it's...
They're hit or miss, and they're always too expensive.
Very expensive.
Yeah. So I do like a good prime rib, though.
Now, now when I was really poor, like on my own poor, the hamburger steak.
There's a burger patty.
Pretty much.
Onion on top. You put some onion on that thing?
But it was good because I used to have that at Doc's Steakhouse. And if you guys had ever eaten at Doc's and had the garlic salad at Doc's,
I would soak those patties
$6.99
in Worcestershire sauce and butter.
Worcestershire.
Worcestershire.
What is
Worcestershire.
somebody said something about wash your sister sauce?
Oh, yeah.
Watch your sister sauce.
I've heard that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I bet you guys have.
Watchers. Shut up. All right.
All right. Good word, Chet. What do you got for us?
So, there's this dude I watch on YouTube. His name's Sean Ryan. You know who I'm talking about?
I do not.
He was a former Navy SEAL and a former employee of the CIA, according to his bio. And he lands some pretty good candidates for interviews. And he hadn't been out there that long. Like, it's a podcast, but it's only on YouTube. He's got over 1 million followers. He's very good, similar to Rogan in the fact that he'll ask a question and then be quiet for like 10 minutes and let that person just talk and tell stories. And some of the people that served with people that we know have been on there. And that's one of those guys that's how I found this guy. Well, anyway, very calm guy, very, and so I'm on the internet the other day on Twitter, and he live tweet. This is just a fascinating thing. I'm going to read you a couple of his tweets, and these are over the course of a two day span. And It's just, this is fascinating. And this comes from, and so the good word is hope, and this is not hope at first. He said, today I'm going to try church for the first time in many years. I've never taken it seriously. This time I will. I hope to see some of you there. I've reached a cycle. This is another tweet. I've reached a psychological state where I realized I had nothing to lose but the darkest of negativity. That is what brought me here. I can already feel it leaving my body. I must be home now. And then a little bit later, I cried. My wife cried. Thank you for welcoming us into your kingdom. And then he tweets, I felt alone for a long time. I've wondered where are all the people who align with the values and morals I was raised on, the people who are tired of having this ridiculous new culture forced upon them, the people who will stand against what they know in their hearts is wrong. As it turns out, they were here all along. I was looking in all the wrong places. They are all followers of Christ. And just like that, I'm not alone anymore. And then a little bit later, this is the last of that series. I've been trying to make sense of all that is happening in my country right now and in the world, only to conclude there is no sense to be made. The absurdness has led me to find Christ. Here I am. So his despair, his lack of hope and everything turned him to the one place he hadn't looked yet, which was church. And that kind of reminds me of a passage out of Colossians chapter 1. I'm going to read verses 3 through 8. We always thank God, this is Paul writing to the church in Colossae. We always thank God, the Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, when we pray for you, because we have heard of your faith in Christ Jesus and of the love you have for all of God's people, the faith and love that spring from the hope stored up for you in heaven, and about which you have already heard in the true message of the gospel that has come to you, the gospel that has come to you. In the same way, the gospel is bearing fruit and growing throughout the world, just as it has been doing among you since the day you heard it and truly understood God's grace. You learned it from Epharius, our dear fellow servant, who is a faithful minister of Christ our Lord, and from Christ our Lord on his behalf, and who also told us your love in the Spirit. If you go back to the beginning here, the faith and love that spring from the hope stored up for you. So his lack of hope, or his despair, Sean Ryan's, turns him to church. And now he has found people and he's found hope. And what does hope bring forth? If you want to think about planting, it's the fertilizer, and it's going to grow faith and love. So the beauty here, kind of connecting those dots, is that the guy didn't have anywhere else to turn, and he's an intellectual individual and asks a lot of questions, and he's just seeing what's happening and just gets further and further and further in despair. And there's nobody else out there that sees what I see. It's lost. All hope is lost. And he shows up and he's like, nope, it's Christ. There's hope here. I feel like I'm home now, that I'm being called to be here. It's very impactful, very emotional. And then because of that hope now, we're going to see his faith grow and his love grow. And I'm really excited about that, because that's what hope in Christ does, is it changes you. It does things. And what it does is it increases your faith, and it increases your love for others and your love for him. So that's the good word, hope.
Thanks for listening to the Hardheaded Podcast. Don't forget to share this podcast with others to help us get the word out.
Also, if you haven't yet, please rate and review the show. This helps our podcast show up in other people's suggested shows that may or may not have listened to us before.
Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.